Thank you so much for joining us, Ken. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're running multiple projects and businesses these days too, so I appreciate you taking time.
For sure.
So we've got 5 or 6 questions for us today for this quick episode. The first one is you've been in the space for over 25 years. What has stayed true about effective trauma care, and what's changed over that time period?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd say that the thing that has stayed true is that specialty has become very important and stayed very, very important. So when I got in, really build it and they will come held true, but was starting to die. And I really, with a few other people, kind of predicted that the move to specialty and away from generalist care was going to be everything. And it proved true. So I leaned heavy into trauma and attachment.
Mm.
What's interesting, those that really know it and do well continue to thrive, but everybody tries to co-opt the movement and whatever the specialty is that you've got. So trauma has become a buzzword, and you have to dig just a little bit to find out whether people actually know what it means. And so we're starting to talk more about, for instance, ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experience Study, to make
Mm.
sure that we actually know what's going on relative to trauma. So that's the thing. Specialties stayed really important, and people try and invade that space without really knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I find that's happening in most spaces in the behavioral health vertical. Right, is there's a lot of people trying to enter, and some of them don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as CEO of the Hope Group, how do you translate some of your clinical values into organizational decisions really at scale, right, across multiple teams, multiple locations?
Yeah, you bet. I think it's terribly important that you get relationship down if you're going to be a successful business person. All of the research is pretty compelling that, for instance, pay does not really matter in terms of keeping people on board. It has to be at least average, and we try and be 125% of the average prevailing wage so that you take that off the table. And then money's only a problem if you make it a problem by paying too little. So once that's done, what keeps people? Well, it's opportunities for advancement, and it's particularly at least one person that an employee or partner feels is mentoring them or that they're deeply connected with. And so, the clinical skills, it's not about clinical skills, it's about for me, it's about clinical heart and the desire to be connected. And I think that really helps find quality human beings that we connect with, and then create a compensation package that takes that off the table, and then they can buy into the vision and to the relationship connection.
That makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. Leadership without connection to actual people's heart, it just doesn't engage no matter what. So next question then is many providers, as you mentioned, work with trauma or are trying to focus on trauma, but they don't always build actual trauma-informed systems. Where do you think more of them should start, or maybe the other way to look at that is where do you guys start to build those systems?
Yeah. So 30 years ago, the Adverse Childhood Experience Study came out. And really, it is the underpinnings to what adverse childhood experiences, trauma, do to the human lifespan, physically, and interpersonally, and psychologically. So I think that that's the place to start. I was just at a program that really had tremendous people there, caring, good folks, and they believed that they were trauma specialists. And I asked them, what's kind of the common ACEs score of your kids? They didn't know what the ACEs was. That's not good. If you're claiming that you understand trauma and you don't know ACEs, go start over. So that's where I'd start. I'd understand ACEs, and then I'd find out what some of the best thinkers, I'd probably be looking at Dr. Dan Siegel, Dr. Bruce Perry, and Dr. Gabor Mate, what they're having to say. If you understand those three authors and you understand ACEs, you got a really good starting place.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So your podcast was, is you also have a podcast that is gaining a lot of traction. It shares a lot of really vulnerable stories. What is one that has really stuck with you?
It's interesting that I don't know if it's a one single story as much as it is that people's why, when they get into the behavioral healthcare space, is just deeply connected to why they would ever enter that. So, I think of John Spiesman and his own family stuff that he had to deal with, and, Julie Beam being the mother of an adopted young lady, and it just absolutely changes your outlook on life if you have to deal in a very deep way with trauma. Suicide or suicidal tendencies or mental health issues, and that can really propel people into the space in ways that I think is really powerful, because it's not just then about making a dollar, it's really a driving passion.
It's awesome. It makes complete sense. Yeah, and I found that that's true of every single person I've met with, every single person I've talked to in behavioral health, is they have a deep, real connection. It's not true of every industry, but it definitely seems to be true of behavioral health. You're in a really competitive space. Like you mentioned, there's a ton of groups, a lot of private equity and others kind of entering the space. What works for you right now in gaining new clients and gaining new patients?
Well, really, it's that deep specialty. It's a long-standing penetration and proving of being a thought leader and understanding it in some of the businesses that have been around for a long time. And then it's putting a stake in the ground and really sticking with the thing that you know well. So I think of Havenwood Academy, and we've been doing this trauma focus for 13 years now, 11, 12 years now, and really pushed hard over the last 4.5 years. That then just keeps people coming back, because even by word of mouth, they know that we know that thing. Our biggest referral source, in fact, is our payer sources, believe it or not. They keep referring other people that they're going to have to pay for because they know that we'll do a really good job with it. It goes back to that same thing, specialty, really being deeply enmeshed in that particular vertical gives you a chance then to just say there's nobody else that can go through the pain that it takes to create this level of understanding.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it's a definite vote of confidence in people that actually have to cough up the money, that actually have to write the check, believe in what you're doing and how you're doing it, which is cool. So then last question here. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced, and what are some of the hardest parts about launching a new business, especially in this space?
There's a couple of things, really. It's finding the leader. The hardest thing is to find somebody that's going to match the partnership, that has the right qualities and attributes and at least a beginning skill set. At the end of the day, we believe fully in hiring the quality of human first. So qualities and attributes are not, 3 standard deviations beyond what you should be looking for in terms of skill, but they're probably a full standard deviation. That matters more than anything. And then they need a basic level of skill set. We can train up a little bit. That's okay, as long as they're the right quality human being. So, but finding that fit, that's the hardest thing. We looked for an executive director for a year for Havenwood to take over from Josh, who took over from me. And that was a hard slog. Finally found that person. We looked for maybe 9 months for the boys program that we're going to build, and then got Charlie Falatea. That is the biggest hurdle. And the second is then finding a location that will fit what you're trying to do. Being able to get it at a rate that allows you to still put together a business and a pro forma that will work. So I'd say those are the 2 biggest hurdles to overcome.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. And I think staff is always the hardest part of every business. I think it almost doesn't matter what business it is, but the leader of a team is the hardest role to fill regardless of the job. And I think it's probably just more so in the case of any kind of addiction treatment or trauma treatment, because it's a really delicate situation that almost every single individual that comes in for treatment is in. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Ken. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your insights. Hopefully we can stay connected.
Sounds fantastic, Tim. Really appreciate you spending some time with me.
Absolutely. Thank you.